Welcome back to the Candy Colored Studio. I'm artist Katrina Berg, and this is episode 241. And I want to send you the biggest fall hug full of fall colors and freshly sharpened pencils, all my favorite things. Anyways, so much love to you today, dearest friend. So for a studio update, all I can think about is that I just want to talk about the colors. So we got to go take homecoming photos of our junior son and his friends, and that was so much fun because some of the reds were just barely starting to come out. And I feel like the hills right now are totally on fire with red and yellow and green and orange, like all the colors. We just drove up and down Provo Canyon the last couple days, and we're seeing all the colors. And I just keep thinking about my grandpa Chauncey because he had this gorgeous photograph of Provo Canyon when it was all the colors. And it's interesting because as a kid, I just thought fall meant you see all the colors, but certain weeks you just see red and certain weeks you just see yellow. But right now we still have a lot of green left because for whatever reason, it was an amazing year. And so we have all the colors and it's so beautiful. The other favorite thing is that we saw the kite surfers at Deer Creek. They were all out doing their kite surfing, and apparently there's an app that tells you when to go kite surfing, which is so awesome. And so when you see them, there's like a whole bunch of them. It's like a huge reunion of kite surfers, and so that's super fun. In the studio, I've just found out that my piece, Love. What is it called? Um, Love is here. Our love is here to stay. And it's a big, round, 48-inch navy background floral, all about how love is the best foundation. It was the first piece in um, my big floral series that I did last year. So that piece is going to be in Springville Art Museum's 38th annual spiritual and religious show. And I'm so happy about that. It'll be so fun. And it's just interesting because it's the very first time they've done an online application, and I've done some online applications lately and I didn't get in. And so it's always like so exciting when you actually get into a show. So anyways, Springville's my favorite. So if I have to choose, that's where I want to be anyways. In other fun things, I had the pleasure of hanging out with the young women from our neighborhood on Wednesday night. They were over and we did a little paint night, and I took them around the studio and they asked questions about my process. And it was so fun just to celebrate them and their creativity and spend time with them. So that's what's been happening. And then I wanted to show you, I have these gorgeous, I got to hang out with the Bikin' Babes ladies. So that's Allie Johnson and all her friends, Jillian, Robin, and there's too many wonderful ladies to name. But anyways, I hung out with them one day. They were up here in Midway at Robin's family's cabin, and I was able to purchase these from Allie. Her daughter makes these gorgeous, they're bread bags. So they're made out of tea towels, and you can see you just kind of slide your bread right in there. And then when you're done, you can kind of like wrap it up. I've been putting biscuits, and what else did I put in there? I had an Irish soda loaf that I put in there. And then when you're not using it, you can just hang it up by this little thing right here. And so there's this one. I have a really big one right now that I'm using. And then there's this little bit smaller one. But you can put all your baked goods in here. And then when it gets dirty, you just throw it in the wash. And I was really surprised at how fresh the stuff stayed. And so that was amazing. So if you want to have any of those amazing bread bags, just let me know and I'll give you Allie Johnson's number and you can talk to her about them. You can purchase them yourself, or you can make some for yourself. Again, amazing. So that's kind of a fun thing. And then I have these like amazing moments where I feel like I'm learning things constantly, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that needs to be in a podcast episode, or I have this experience that needs to be in a podcast episode. So I've just keep writing down all these things. And over the last like month, I have 12 episode topics for you. So hopefully I'll actually be able to take the time to do that. So I'm looking forward to sharing each of those with you. And the latest thing that I was pondering this past week is the topic we're going to talk about today. But I'm so excited about every single one. So it'll be really great. And I've got some people that want to be interviewed. So we'll be getting those out to you as well. So lots of good things happening in the studio. Let's talk about some opportunities for collectors and artists. Well, obviously, there's so many markets and shows coming up. I told you about the Springville Art Museum Spiritual and Religious Show that opens October 16th, I believe. I have my paper over there, and then it's up till like January. So I'll give you another heads up once it's up, but that's happening. And then probably the thing I'm most excited about is that my dear friend Nanette, who does the Utah Art Market, but she also does the 135 Fine Art Market. Anyways, Nanette is the number one supporter. Like, she's done the most for my career. Nanette and Springville. Those are like my two things that have helped me the most with my career. And Nanette has always wanted to have her own gallery. And so it's happening. It's called the Four Lemons. And the name is really sweet. It's all because of the very first original painting that she ever bought, and it has four lemons in it. Anyways, it's the perfect name, and I'm so happy for her, and I'm so excited for our community of artists and collectors, and just it's going to be awesome. So I'm going to give you the address. It's 4850 South Highland Drive in Holiday, and the grand opening is going to be next Friday, and that's October 4th, and it's open from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. is the grand opening. So if you get a chance, totally put that on your calendar. You can go to her website, fourlemons.com. I think it's fourlemonsart.com. Oh gosh, I got to look that up. Anyways, I'll announce it again in the next episode, but I'll also put the address in the show notes. So you can always go to the show notes on my website, katrinaberg.com, under the podcast page, scroll to episode 241, and all the links will be on there. And there's going to be a bunch of links for this episode. So make sure you check out those links. Anyways, super excited for Nanette. So happy for her. What a amazing thing. I knew it was going to happen. You just have to be patient till it's like the right timing, right? And she's been doing just amazing things for the artists and collectors for so many years. And I remember it was a dream of hers to do a fine art market, and that she calls the 135. And then when that finally happened, it was like such a big deal. And then now the gallery is happening. And so she will still be having her regular markets and the fine art market. And then she'll always have the gallery, which will be open. So that'll be amazing. So to give you dates of things that are coming up there, their fine art, as in the 135, is going to be November 9th. And then the regular, I guess it would be the holiday market, the December market, is December 4th through the 7th. And then there's some other brand new, really cool things coming up. I met the Hazel Avenue Market gal reached out to me because of Swiss Days, and that, I believe, is next to Thanksgiving Point, and that is a huge market. There's like more than 350 vendors. Their next one is coming up October 5th, so that's Saturday the 5th at Electric Park, and that'll be really cool. So if you're a lover of creative things, like, definitely go check that out. If you're a creator, like, you should definitely check it out to see if you want to participate. And then, of course, one of the other best shows of the season that's similar to the 135 would be the $100 show, and that's at Springville Art Museum. This year it's going to be on Thursday, December 5th, from 6:30 to 8, and that's only one night, and it's a lot of fun. It's like Black Friday fun, but with art in an amazing museum. It's just like the event. It's so cool. So that's coming up. And then, of course, some other markets. Of course, there's Beehive Bazaar, which I absolutely adore. And they have their their holiday markets will be December 3rd through the 7th and the 10th through the 14th. Then there's also the Hive Market, or the Maker's Hive. That will be October 12th and 19th. And then, of course, we've got Salt and Honey. They're pretty much open all the time, but they have like specific events going on, like openings and fun themed things. So you can always check out those. But like I said, I'll have links to all these in the show notes. And then the last big event for collectors and artists that I wanted to tell you about is the AAUW, the women's art show. And it's like every other year. And it is at the Utah Cultural Celebration Center. And that's kind of like I don't know, what do they call that? They call that West Salt Lake. Anyways, it's not very far from downtown, and it's a beautiful space, and it's always a wonderful show. And my dearest friend, Nancy Andrick Olson, she received the best of show this year for her watercolor Bedouin tea, and it is a stunning piece. Anyways, go see it. It's such a fun event. All women artists of Utah. Anyways, I can't recommend it enough. So, those are like the big events that are happening. And then the last thing I wanted to tell you about is that my dear friends that do the Artist Soar podcast, that would be my three ladies, Stephanie and Rachel, and of course, Julie. They have this brand new, it's called, I can't remember what they're calling it. Maybe it's called the Artist Soar Mastermind, but they have that coming up. So if you're in Huntsville, you definitely want to check that out. It's going to be small groups, like 12 people in the mastermind. They're going to have like regular meetings, I think once or twice a week, and they have it looks fabulous. So if you're like me and you're not close to Huntsville, which is understandable, then I would say go check it out, because if you've always wanted to be part of a mastermind, or you wanted to set one up and you didn't know what would be like a good like way to do it, go on their website and see what they're going to be doing, and kind of see what would work for you and your mastermind artists. That would be awesome. That would be so cool. And this is for like any entrepreneur, like whatever your field, like it's a great thing to do, like masterminds. And some masterminds have like people from all different fields and markets of business. But then, like, for example, the Artist Soar ladies, they want to get all different kinds of artists in there. So whether you're a potter, a photographer, a painter, it doesn't matter. They want you to join their mastermind. And so again, it's good to always kind of see what different ones are out there, so you can create the one that's right for you. So anyways, I would say check them out. Okay. Let's jump into some gratitude. So I am so grateful for brave people. So I've been thinking so much about Michelle Stone. I don't know if you are familiar with her. She is an LDS woman who started asking questions about polygamy, and her journey is amazing. Her YouTube channel is 132 Problems, 132 Problems. If you're LDS, you'll kind of know what that's refers to. But I found her episode months and months, or her channel months and months ago, and I have just been slowly working through all the episodes, and I can't recommend enough. Start at the beginning. So start with episode number 1, and then you can kind of like see where she started as a believer in polygamy, and then she kind of goes through this journey of asking, is polygamy of God? Is it not of God? If it's not of God, then what happened? What in the world has happened, especially to us LDS people? Crazy. Okay, so it is amazing. I just want to shout out to Michelle for bravely asking forbidden questions about polygamy. Her bravery is absolutely inspiring. Her journey and her willingness to get uncomfortable and share all the uncomfortable things, and her uncertain journey is totally moving. So I can't recommend her channel enough, especially if you, like me, have had questions, or you've been triggered by polygamy. It's a hard topic. So anyways, that's the gratitude that I have, is for brave people like Michelle. And then as for manifesting, I am manifesting right now that all these slow truths that have been slowly coming out, like I am ready for them to be shouted from the rooftops, like it says in the scriptures, like for everything to be uncovered, everything to be revealed. And just, I think so many of us are just ready. We are just so ready. So that's what I'm manifesting. And then as for a grief strategy, one of my dearest friends, her mother passed away recently, and that was so hard. And as I was trying to decide what to text her, and I was just thinking about things, I think what would be a really great strategy for those of us that are grieving, or that want to specifically want to support those that are grieving. I've mentioned in a previous episode how something that helped me was recording favorite memories through like images, drawings, putting them in a photo book. You can put them on a blog. You can record them in your journal. But today I want to suggest that one of the things we can do is write out, whether it's in a letter or on a text or an email, write out a favorite memory of somebody who's passed and share it with the person that we love that's grieving. So that would be the strategy that I would suggest. Or, invite you to try out, see if it works for you. Okay, let's jump into our topic. I'm actually really excited about talking about these topics. I love like deeply thinking about things, but I want to talk about doing all the shoulds in our life, all the things that we should be doing. Okay, and so I want to talk about a social media post that I saw. This is months ago. I don't know if it's 6 months ago, 8 months ago. So there was this post within the LDS community that was getting a lot of comments, and a lot of women were going on there. And basically, the frustration was that a lot of women within our faith feel like they were that they had looked back at their life and they were frustrated because they had followed counsel of leaders, whether it was like local leaders or, even more, church-wide leadership, where they had based their life choices on this counsel. Okay. And some of the things that they had done was they had based when they were going to marry, or if they should marry, and if they should work while they're married, should they have children, all these things, should they go to school, what should they study. I personally remember feeling that pressure. I remember hearing counsel, whether it was in talks or conference or like devotionals at school, whether it was in, at church or like in the magazines. I remember the pressure. Okay. And I still feel that pressure from time to time. And as I read the comments by friends that I knew that were like actually commenting on this social media post, whether they were my friends, where they were acquaintances, family members, like even women I didn't even know, my heart just like ripped out. I just was grieving for these women. It was so difficult to read some of these comments because I just knew how frustrated and how just devastated these women were because they had listened. And anyways, it was hard. So I remember just mourning as I read these, mourning for the lives that they felt that they had lost, the time that they felt they had lost, the direction. And it was hard. And no doubt about it, I feel like everybody, including myself, we've all had regrets about things that, choices that we'd made, directions we'd taken in our life. Now, I feel like for me personally, I definitely had regrets. And these were ones that couldn't necessarily, like, they could be course corrected, right? They could be remedied. And they were remedied with the help of my heavenly parents. And probably some of these might surprise you, or if you've listened for a while, they probably won't surprise you. But I think the things that I regret the most is actually like 8 years of college. LOL. I actually regret that. And I talk about that often with friends and family because I feel like a lot of times we just feel like the only choice is to go to college. And for me to be a fine artist and a mother, I really didn't need to go to college. Now, was it a good experience? Absolutely. Did I learn? Absolutely. Do I wish I would have just jumped into my art and had confidence in my art, you know, 18 years before? That would have been amazing. That would have been awesome, right? So I would say that. And then also like health choices. It took me a while to be brave enough to make the health choices that I've made the last 20 years. But those first 27 years of my life, I don't know. Anyways, I wish that I had been a little bit more intentional, right? And so, again, this is something that I'm sure we all have felt, some regrets, where it's big regrets, little regrets, no surprises, right? Like that's something that we've all experienced. But again, what these women were most frustrated about were these big choices that they made. And yet I feel like there's also small choices that we make every day that when they add up, they become bigger consequences, and they can lead us to have more regret, right? And so I was thinking about that. I'm like, okay, so what are these shoulds that we think that we need to be doing, that we feel this pressure? And so I thought about, we have expectations, whether it's how to show up in our kids' classrooms at school, or whether should we be homeschooling, should we be sending our kids to like a private school. All those expectations with our kids with their education, that's a lot of pressure. There's pressure at church with the callings that we take or the ways that we serve in our community and our church and all those things. It could be with our extended family, the way that we show up in our extended family. How do we go to every event by family members and our favorite nieces and nephews? I mean, they're all my favorites, but I'm just saying, how do we attend every event? How do we attend every party? Or, there's just so much pressure of what to say yes to. And it's also in culture. What kind of pressures are we feeling from culture? It can be, again, like within our marriages. How are we feeling pressured to do certain things in our marriage? And a lot of times it's good to have pressure, but at the same time sometimes it's too much, and sometimes those pressures aren't like, they're not meant for us, right? I would even say is simple things like birthday parties. Like, how do we throw a birthday party for our kids? All those little things can add up. So here are some questions that I wrote down that I think we can ask ourselves. The first one that I thought of was, are these things, these events, these tasks that I'm saying yes to, are they bringing me joy? So let's ask ourselves that. Are these things, tasks, and events bringing us joy, right? Am I becoming a more complete or whole person because I'm making these choices? Am I becoming my best self because I'm saying yes to these choices or these shoulds, right? And then another question that we can ask ourselves is, okay, I'm doing all these things. I feel like I should be doing all these things, but who's actually running my life? Is it me? Is it the expectations of others? Or is it Christ? Am I taking these shoulds to Christ, saying, which one should I be actually doing? Right. And then it goes back to this idea that the most powerful words that we can use are yes and no. And hopefully we're using no more than any other word, and that the word yes is actually used sparingly. Now, I used to be a yes girl. I've talked about this before on the podcast. I was raised to be a yes girl, but I've learned in my adulthood that yes is special, and I need to be very careful about what I say yes to. And when I am able to say yes, then I want to be intentional. I want to be present. I want to be all in for that yes, right? But when I'm saying yes to everything, then all these shoulds that I'm feeling, they're not special. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling pressure, and they can add up to really big regrets, right? So another thing that we can think about is, do I want to do it all, or do I want to carefully curate with the Lord a life that is right for me and my family? Okay, I'm going to say that again. Do I want to do it all, or do I want to carefully create with the Lord a life that is right for me and my family? And again, that when you curate something, usually that means it's not going to look like everyone else's curated life. And that's what's hard, is that it's real easy to feel like we should be doing all these things in a culture because that's what everyone's doing. But when everyone's doing it, does that mean it's the best thing for me? I don't know. So then I thought about visually a pendulum, right? There's this pendulum swinging between constantly being stressed and resting and healing, right? So you're stressed on one side, you're resting and healing and waiting upon the Lord on the other side, right? So the question is, I think that naturally stress is helpful. Stress and pressure helps us become. You think about a diamond and how it takes all this pressure to create a diamond in this special gem, right? But so we can't become without pressure. But if all we do is have pressure, then it'll crack and it'll break eventually, right? And so the question is, we need to make sure that that pendulum is not always on this stressed out, maybe not stressed out, but this, pressure side. But we have to give ourselves time to rest and heal and carefully curate with the Lord. And so again, it's this pendulum swinging back and forth, and we're trying to figure out what's best for us, what's best for our family, what's the best direction to go to. I feel like sometimes when we're not allowing that pendulum to swing back and forth, we can get stuck and we become stagnant. And why are we stagnant? Is it because we're afraid? And because of that fear, we're just not making any choices? These are things to consider. So for me, I mean, it's great to rest, but I need to make sure that I'm not becoming stagnant, because I don't want to be stuck in fear and then feel like I'm paralyzed and I can't take any action or make any choices. So for me, another question that I would ask myself, and something that we can ask ourselves together, is, am I so busy trying to meet everyone's demands that I'm becoming their creature instead of God's child? And that's a really hard question, because it's real easy to be like, yes, 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 I'm doing all these things, I'm making everyone happy, I'm just that person that everyone can rely on. But what is better, when everyone can rely on you and you're only meeting everyone's needs, or when you go to the Lord and you become his child because you're following exactly what he has for you, which, and I should say they have for us, because it is so much greater, right? And so it might sound super, super harsh, but we have to ask ourselves, is it easier to do what everybody wants me to do, or is it harder? And so for me, in my experience, I think it is easy to just say yes and feel like I'm being so productive and so helpful, doing everything that everybody wants me to do, everything I should be doing. But it's actually harder for me to say, oh, I got to make some choices. I can't just say yes to everything. I got to be more intentional about my choices. I have to really say, is this choice, is this event, is this task, is this direction going to help me get where I really want to be as a mother, as a friend, with my family? Is this taking me where I want to be, or is it not? And so for me, it is harder to say no. It is harder to just curate and to become that creature. So again, I think it is harder. And I think, again, the waiting, because sometimes you're waiting upon the Lord and it doesn't come super fast. At least for me, I have to be quiet. I have to be patient. I have to totally follow my heart and give my life to Christ in order to do that. So, personal experience. So, I feel like growing up, I thought that I was an obedient child. I thought I was like this, I thought I was a good kid. And yet, as I got older, I remember my mom just lamenting about her strong willed children. And she specifically calls us strong willed. Well, and basically what a curse it was, right? Well, spoiler, she was blessed with 6 of us, and I've been blessed with 5. Carl and I have been blessed with 5, and we feel it's a true blessing. Like, I love it so much, because my kids are constantly asking questions. They're constantly wanting to know why we do things, what's best for them, like what choices they have. And it's been great. So going back to that social media post about the ladies that were frustrated about choices that they had made because they felt all this pressure, right? So as I was thinking about that, and my heart was just completely broken for these women, I couldn't help but wonder, why in the world, how come I was able to avoid some of those like same disappointments? It took me a really long time to get married because I wasn't willing to just give in to the pressure. I was waiting. I was waiting for something really good, and God delivered for me. Carl is like, he is the best, you guys. He's so great. But again, I was wondering, why in the world, I'm nothing great or special. Like, I'm no better than those amazing women that I'm friends with or that I was reading about their stories. But I think as I sat there and pondered about that, I feel like the Lord taught me that I had learned from an early age that I wasn't just going to listen. And this is really interesting, right? But I feel like I'm so grateful for leaders and teachers and my parents, but I rarely, this is horrible, but I'm going to say it, I rarely felt loyal to them in a way that was greater than what I was hearing in my own heart. I always felt that what I was hearing whispered from my heart was I needed to be loyal to that above all these people that I loved. And so in my adult years, I admit, instead of being this obedient, wonderful young child, I have leaned more and more towards nonconformity, questioning everything, and in many cases found that the only solution was to seek information from above. And so again, why was that happening? So as I was pondering all this, the Spirit reminded me that I learned this from a young age. I couldn't trust leaders. I couldn't trust parents and doctors and teachers and authority in any aspect of my life. Now, maybe you've heard the episode, but I have a whole episode about when I was molested by my babysitter as a toddler. I had other things happen to me throughout my life. But basically, I didn't trust adults because, I mean, that happened to me when I was like 3 and 4, right? And then because of it, I couldn't trust my parents or adults the way that a lot of kids did, right? And then a few years after that, within a few years of that experience, I was then being prodded and tested on and, being seen by all these doctors and many times being touched inappropriately. And it never, in all of that experience in the medical field, it never helped me. It never improved my situation. And so I learned from a young age to distrust anyone with a fancy degree, a beautiful, prestigious white coat. It was not something that I was going to embrace naturally, right? So when my Forrest Gump leg braces were finally ready, my mom and I went to, I don't even know what this guy was called. Obviously, he was a specialist, but we went to go pick up my braces and make sure they fit and put them on, and everything was ready. And there they were. And here was my mom sobbing in the doctor's office because it was hard. She had been dealt a really difficult hand, and it was hard for her to have her child with this situation, and she was the mom, and it was rough. And even more difficult for her was that her sister had been through the same thing. And so, granted, I don't think my Aunt Buffy ever had braces, but she has the same rare bone disease. And so it was kind of like my mom's whole world was crashing in front of her, and she's dealing with all of this, right? And she just wasn't strong enough to face it, and most people aren't. And so as a young child, I was, let's see, how old was I? It was second grade, second and third. Yeah, I think that's right. I was second grade, so I could have been 7 or 8. Okay. No, I think I was 7. Oh, boy, that was little. Okay. So, yeah. So I'm 7 years old. I'm getting these braces on, and my mom is like falling apart in the doctor's office. And I didn't know what to do. I found myself comforting her and forcing myself to be brave. I had to hold in all my fear, my despair, my worry, my questions. I was alone. I was basically the strong one in the room. I was completely alone. And there was no one to comfort me, right? Or to assure me. Of course, the doctor had no idea what to do. I mean, this is back in the days when nobody knew what to do. Everything was so impersonal. But what an awful place to be as a child. But yet, I will say with confidence that it ended up being one of the greatest things, one of the greatest gifts my mom ever gave me, because in my deepest lack, I found God, and I found love and strength and total comfort. I wasn't really alone because they were there, and they would never leave me. And they were those that I could trust wholly and always. And so I have so much gratitude for my mom for giving me that gift, so much gratitude for my heavenly parents for being there for me, for my savior. And then later they gave me another great gift, which was Carl, and I had one more person to trust. And so, again, thanks to these early experiences, I learned to go to the Lord about all things. And so, whenever I felt torn between something that I'm hearing or that I'm feeling this pressure that's coming from someone, and then between that and what my heart was saying, then I went to the Lord and I asked. And I'd always be like, okay, I'm hearing this, I'm feeling that, I'm feeling this pressure, but what my heart is telling me is this, Lord, what should I do? And so for me, it has always been, it's not easy because I'm not always ready to hear the answers that are going to be given to me, because they're not always the easy answers. It's not always easy to say no to certain things that everyone else is doing, or yes to certain things that nobody is doing. It's hard. It's totally hard. But I will say that because I have made those choices and made that a priority because I know that my biggest source of strength is my heavenly parents and my savior. I learned firsthand that they can do so much more with my life than the well-meaning voices that I hear everywhere else. And again, that's the problem. It's not always this good versus evil. It's all these good things and better things versus the best things that God can give us, right? And so for me personally, I feel like now that I have this partnership with Carl, it's this complete team, God, Carl, and I. And it is the greatest wish that I have for each of my kids. I want them to have a partner to which they can bind with God. And I can't tell you how many times that I've gone to Carl about something that I feel like I should be doing or I feel guilty about. Like, for example, right after Swiss days when my brain was totally Swiss cheese. So I finally decided it's called Swiss cheese brain because, like, during Swiss days, it was so much and it was so amazing, but my brain was like totally fried in the best Swiss cheese way. And it took me 2 full weeks to get my brain back. And and within those 2 weeks, I signed up for a parent teacher conference, had it all set, and somehow completely missed it. Like, totally forgot. That night Carl was with one of the kids doing something else and he called. He's like, "Hey, how was parent teacher conference?" I'm like, totally missed it for the first time ever. Like, that was so bad. And I was like devastated. I was having all this anxiety and, just stressed about it. And he calmly asks me, "Why do you have to do it? Who says you have to do that? The twins will survive if they miss one parent teacher conference." Especially when it's only September, right? It's September, for crying out loud. Anyways, so again, I'm so grateful to have Carl as my perfect partner in this imperfect marriage that we have, and yet I'm so grateful. Now I know that I'm not naive enough to think that everyone has this opportunity. And so this is what I would say. If you find yourself in a situation where you don't have that perfect partner where you can constantly be questioning things together, like, we can be that person when our partner isn't ready to be that person for us, right? So you can totally be the one that's asking those questions of your spouse, of your partner, of your best friend, of a family member. Like, we can always be that person for someone until they're ready to be that person for us, right? So again, I feel like sometimes we have to have somebody to go to with these hard questions, and it may not be your spouse or your partner. It may be your best friend. It might be a sibling or a parent, but everyone needs to be able to ask these hard questions of each other and to really, like, deeply look at things in life, especially the shoulds and the should nots, right? Because we have to be able to be brave to go against the culture or the experts or all the wonderful, well-meaning voices out there. So this is what I would say. Let us take courage, dear friend, and let's not forget that God, they love us more than we can ever imagine, and they have confidence in our eternal potential. Truly, they can make more of our lives than we ever could. Let us carefully use the words yes and no. And no, it's never too late to let them help us pick up the pieces of our seemingly broken life and guide us to create the life and path that's perfect for our ultimate growth and completeness. So much love to you, my dear friend, from the Candy Colored Studio. Okay. Oh.